Joining us for this conversation around how we look at diversity, equity, and inclusion from a value-based standpoint. So how do we use values to kind of drive these diversity initiatives? And so the first thing I like to recognize is that being steeped in values gives us an advantage, because what that says to us is that whatever the winds of political change are, we will not be kind of thrown by those winds of change. And so within the walls of our organization, we recognize that integrity, service, high quality, innovation, and teamwork are the hallmarks of what diversity, equity, and inclusion should be about, right? And so when we think about all of those initiatives, it really does bring us back to recognizing that it is about values as opposed to political rhetoric or what's happening in greater society. Because when our patients come to us, they want high quality services that they know only we can provide, right? And so we want to make sure that we're engaged in that. We also recognize that this valuing of diversity, equity, and inclusion needs to happen across identities, needs to go across cultures, across all aspects of diversity, because we are very much alike and we are very much dissimilar all at the same time, right? But I would suggest that we are probably more alike than we are different, and that our differences are actually what I would refer to as obstacle illusions. And we'll talk more about that as we continue this conversation. And so when we think about this notion of what it means to be kind of value-based, we recognize that we have commonalities and differences, right? We recognize that the context actually drives our behavior. How we interact with patients, with our coworkers, is really driven a lot by the context. And so when you have a value-based organization, it is those values that drive and demand certain types of behaviors, right? So that's important. We also recognize that in terms of equity, that you cannot separate equity from equality. And so what does that mean? What that means is, if you look at these two plants, they both need very similar things. They need sunlight, they require water, and some kind of medium to grow in, right? And so if the plant is going to thrive, it needs all of those things, but it needs those particular things in a particular manner. And that is where equity comes in, right? So giving people what they need in a way that they need it, so that it's helpful to them. And so although both of these plants need water, they both need sunlight, they both need a growing medium, the type of growing medium is different. The type of watering process is different. The amount of sunlight is different. And so we need both equity and equality when we're working with patients and their family. And that leads us to this notion of inclusion, right? And so making sure that folks know that they are a part of not only solving their own problems, but a part of the organization, that we recognize their commonalities and their differences, and we make sure that we create an environment where they can get what they need the way that they need it. And so looking at this diagram, it really brings to us to recognize that these plants cannot be articulate in telling us what they need. And so as practitioners, we have to come to these plants or to our patients with a certain amount of cultural competence, right? So we have to know some things. And we also recognize that when dealing with these plants, if I build a relationship with the plant, I will start to notice things that that the plant isn't articulating. So if I'm overwatering it, or if I'm not giving it the right service, because I'm paying attention, because I've built a relationship, I now can maximize what that plant is telling me, what that patient is suggesting. Because I've developed a relationship with them, I now can understand oftentimes some of those nonverbals, right? Or I am humble enough to see something and ask, how can this be better? Can I add or offer some clarity to what the process that we're engaged in? So I have humility as a tool that helps me to make sure that we are advancing diversity, equity, and inclusion. And so I just want to say thank you so much for joining us for this short session. I hope that you'll start to see more of these sessions, that you find value in these sessions as we continue to have diversity conversations. Again, my name is Andre Cohen. I want to say thank you so much for joining us, and we look forward to seeing who you become.